Welcome to ThinkSpace. We're so glad that you're here. In the next 90 minutes, we are going to take a journey around the topic of implementations. It's a really emotional topic for many. We've been through it, we understand it, but today it's going to be even more important that we look forward. So today's ThinkSpace is really about us diving into the conversation that we really need to have is how do we do implementations in a way that we've never done them before. We're going to do it through a ThinkSpace model. So what's ThinkSpace?
ThinkSpace is an interactive experience where participants can come and share their thoughts, opinions, and ideas, and also learn from others in a multimodal environment. So whether it's through the chats or through our XLeap platform, or whether it's just verbally through Zoom, there are multiple ways for people to participate, and it's just a really great way to gather insight from so many leaders and all their institutions.
And so we're really glad to be partnering with the HUG and the League for Innovation in the Community Colleges to bring you this topic. We're really excited to have you here. We also have our ambassador, Mike Rogers from Nelnet, who is helping us drive the discussion and facilitate it. Mike?
As Matt said, we're glad you're here. Please buckle up. Prepare for the next 90 minutes, and we invite you to think differently and cautiously about everything that's about to happen.
Welcome to ThinkSpace. We are coming live from our ThinkSpace studio in Chicago. I am here today with two wonderful moderators and ambassadors. I have my colleague, Gabrielle Christofish, who is joining me, who helps help me produce this ThinkSpace. She works with me on a lot of different things. And then I have a gentleman to the right.
That's a gentleman.
A promotion.
You know, me and him have gone way back. Anissa and I have been 10 years. I think me and Michael have been 20. Yeah, he was just a little guy coming out of college.
You taught me that PeopleSoft was capital P, capital S, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
The little things that I taught him. So Michael, of course, has been in the market for about 20 years with several different companies that really is focused on that. And we're really excited to have him here. He is from Nelnet. Do you want to speak a little bit about your role at Nelnet?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Thanks, Matt. I am, hey folks. Hi, everyone. There's a few of you who I've met and known over the years. It's a pleasure to see you again. Next time I see you, I'll give you a hug. I miss you. Mike Rogers, I actually started with Matt. Met Matt 20 years ago. I was implementing PeopleSoft at the City College of Chicago. He pulled me aside. He's like, let me teach you a couple things, right? So he then helped me to get into PeopleSoft as an implementation consultant, and he handed me off to a gentleman who's also on here, John Thompson-Haas, JTH. He was my very first project manager. So I feel like I'm in good hands. I feel like I'm in good hands. These days, I'm a national director at Nelnet, and some of you may know Nelnet. We're an innovative e-commerce and payments company for higher education. So we'll talk more about that later. Prior to Nelnet, I've been at Nelnet for 223 days. I was at PeopleSoft and Oracle for 18 years, and I had a number of roles there: implementation, solution consulting, sales, all sorts of fun stuff. So it's good to be here. It's good to talk with everyone, right?
So we're going to have some really good conversations. He was in Chicago. I said, hey, let's just do it live. So we're really excited. Well, first of all, I want to see if anybody from the HUG is available. Is anyone, Hillary, is anyone here? Is Brittany here? Okay. So we're in collaboration with both the HUG, the Higher Ed User Group, and we're also collaborating with the League for Innovation in Community Colleges. You know, both these organizations have a tremendous amount of universities and colleges that they serve. We believe that their members are what makes higher ed. So that is each of you. So we're really excited about bringing topics that really resonate in market. So one of the things that and you'll know as you get to know me, is that we don't want to talk to you. We want to talk with you. And so we're really just driving a discussion that is going to be where we're Is everyone on ThinkSpace? Let me make sure everyone's on the chat.
I thought maybe your signal had dropped out to the AWS East Coast there for a little bit, Matt.
Yeah, we just lost audio.
It was just for a split second.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're back.
All right, we got Gabriel helping us with that, so I apologize. Yeah, it wasn't the AWS. Come on, guys, can't be bringing that in today. All right, so first of all, I want to say thank you to both the HOG and the League for Innovation at the community colleges who are hosting us here. It really is an opportunity for us to have a really good dialogue through this process. We're going to be a much different event for you, and we're hoping you'll be a part of this as you go forward. As you noticed, we all have worked together in many forms. Gabriel and I have done clubhouses together.
That's right.
Michael and I have done implementation questions and how do we redesign the world in implementation. So we're going to have that. But each of you have your own stories. And so we're really interested in that. So we're going to start right off the bat. And I'm going to move all of you to the first question. And this is an important one because this actually is going to allow us to understand who is in the room. I'm going to collect all of you and tell me, you have these votes that are here. Go ahead and drag the vote of your role in an implementation. And you can play multiple roles. So, or have you played a role? There you go.
Yeah, so in order to vote, you can go ahead and take that number 3. With the 3 is how many roles you may have. Go ahead and click on that circular dot and drag it down to the appropriate response.
So Matt, would a program director or a project manager, would that be a consultant or an executive sponsor?
If you're a university employee, it would be a project team. If you are in a firm, it would be consultant.
Okay.
Should I be seeing something on the screen that I can interact with?
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything either.
Okay, so go ahead and for those of you that are just joining, I'm going to drop the link for the XLEAP.
Okay.
XLEAP is the platform that we are using. So go ahead and click on that link. Do you see it in the Zoom chat?
Yep.
All right, great.
Yep, so open that up, put in your name, put in your email. It's your responses are all anonymous. That's just the way that people are able to log in, so we can see who's in the room, but we can't actually see who's putting what.
All right, so we got a pretty good mix here. We got business users, project team members. We have consultants. That's pretty good. So we're going to get really good responses. So, all right, I'm going to give you about 20 seconds. Is anyone else having any issues getting into XLEAP? Because we're going to move fast because our next one is going to be a speed round on certain things.
We actually still have responses coming in.
Okay, good.
Yep. You go ahead and drop that into the response or the chat again.
That seems kind of ironic with a lot of things you've done that you don't have a like project manager as a possibility there.
Project manager, I put them as a project team.
Okay, that would fit that.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. And like I said, we could have made it granular. I just wanted a good pulse of where we are, right? So that was the thing. So.
There's still a lot of background noise.
From our end.
If you can just mute yourself if you're not speaking, that would really help us. All right. So couple things I wanted to really just address here, because we're now going to go into the details of our ThinkSpace. It's going to be pretty uncomfortable. We're going to have some conversations and thoughts that not everyone wants to have a discussion about. The past 10 years, I would tell you that implementations haven't felt good for many different people. It's a topic that people will talk about initially, but in the end, after the implementation is done, they don't really talk about it. And so there's a lot of reasons to that, and we're going to get to that as much as possible. Couple rules. This is not our opportunity to bash a vendor, or bash a consulting firm, bash a university, bash an idea or a thought, or our goal here is to shed light on things that we just may need to think about, because the next 10 years is going to be even more critical as we move forward. And the reason I say that is the way that we operate, and I'm going to get to a slide in a couple seconds, is different the past pre-pandemic. Post-pandemic, we're going to be in a future of work lens, and we're going to speak about that. And this team that are project team members, that are business end users, that are consultants, we have to produce in a much different way, different than what we've done today. And so we're going to walk through that a little bit here. So a lot of this is not to undermine anyone's decisions. It is about us starting to think about it in a much different way. Everyone agree?
Yep, I say so.
Here, here.
Here, here. All right. So we're going to go right into the first topic. Okay. And the rules that we've had is you can interrupt us. You can jump on mic and speak. If your camera ready, turn on your camera. We may call on you. And that's just the way we like to interact, because we want us to feel connected in our discussion. If you see things that others are putting in and you want to have a conversation about it, go ahead. We will moderate through this process, but we will start to ensure that everyone is connected in the conversation as much as we go. So, all right. So the first question we're going to embark on, I'm going to move you to is understanding the purpose. And I'm going to move all of you to this. I'm going to collect you all. Can you all see this now? Why embark on an implementation? And so before you go and use the stickies, go ahead and put your reasons why people embark on an implementation. Just to know, we have 122 people
Wow, that's
on
awesome.
ThinkSpace.
Wow, look at all of these. It looks like a lot of you already found the comment box. Just a quick side note, if you are having issues finding the comment box, sometimes when you log in, there's a list of participants on the left-hand side. Go ahead and just X that out, and that'll allow you to see the box where it says something along the lines of type your response here.
Sounds good.
There's one response here that made me chuckle. Number 11, certainly not to save money. How about that? Huh?
Oh yes, and you can also, if you don't see the box, you can also click the little plus sign on the left-hand side. So there's a few ways. If you're having issues.
I'm having issues. I'm not sure where I'm seeing the box. I'm sorry. Do we have to go back into that link?
There should be a plus button. Yeah, you all have to go back to that. You have to go to the XLeap platform.
Okay, thank you.
That's where we're at. So that we are doing it in tandem. So just an
Got
FYI.
it. Thank you.
Yeah, we can't actually share. Oh, we've tried it where we share the screen that has the XLeap, but the issues that people were saying, they were having issues with having the Zoom open and their browser open. So we just don't share the XLeap browser, but Matt is redirecting everyone. So as soon as you log in, you should be exactly where you need to be.
Yeah, Mike, that comment about certainly not to save money caught my eye. I don't know how many times you and I and all of us have worked on projects where the very first thing they say is, we want to do this to save money and to cut our costs and cut our expenses. And it never works out that way.
Yeah, so I'm noticing that the speed of responses is kind of slowing down. If you feel so called, we'd love to have you actually
Pin.
pin the stickies up top with the responses that you feel it most aligns to. So go ahead and click the circular, whether it's the blue, the orange, or the purple, just go ahead and drag it down. It looks like some of you are getting the hang of that. So.
And anybody that, do you all see a response here that caught your eye? I have one, but
There's a couple.
Yeah.
Couple interesting ones.
especially the ones that have gone through this. The one that I saw was the president said so. And I think the biggest issue here is making sure everyone understands that implementations serve everybody. And it isn't just one-sided, one directional, that implementations have to have buy-in from everybody. And we're going to have that discussion as we go forward, but it's something that is really important. What I'm going to ask, I'm going to pause the participant input right now. I'm going to ask each of you to look at the responses of your colleagues. These are all the things that you have put on here. I want each of you to go and say, hey, that's a reason of a business user. That's a reason of a project team. That's a reason of a C-suite. Because what I want to do here really quick is try to bring us together. I'm going to sort it in a way that allows us to see, do we have common reason?
Well, and while you all are doing that, Matt and JTH had a discussion one day earlier this week about we were brainstorming our own ideas of what responses might be given. And if you look at number 46, that was one that resonated, that we came up with, because everyone else is, right? Because everyone else is. But I think when we were all much younger, our parents told us something about, you know, Johnny jumps off of a bridge, will you? I guess it's true still to some degree. Interesting.
And not only do you get to the everything else is, but then you also wind up running into the trap of trying to do it the way everyone else has done it, rather than the way that you needed to have done. And I've had clients that say, well, client X did this and it didn't work, or client Y did this and it did, but neither action was appropriate for the client, for the client that I was actually working with. It's not only real easy to fall in the trap of doing it because my neighbor's doing it, but doing it the same way. One of the things to think about is one of the other items here that caught my eye was to make things better. And often by the end of an implementation, we haven't made things better. And that's one of the things to be interested to explore in this conversation is, why is that?
So as you notice, I sorted up. You will see that replacing legacy or obsolete tools is one. So let's just put that in the back burner of like, hey, we got to get on a better platform. So that should be a reason. The next one is scalability, business needs, address a business gap or need. So I think 3 and 18 are probably the same. I'm going to merge them really quick. And that's a great thing about how we do things here. Automate approvals, okay? To improve a process, that's great. So these are some really good ones. So if you notice, both sponsors, project sponsors and project teams both felt that. Let me sort the C-suite, because everyone else is, okay. Interesting. Business needs, so that's great. It's time for a change. Replace obsolete. The president said so. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and we got a someone, Christina, put in the chat. They said, "Are people really doing it because everyone else is? I've only seen it happen because there are real issues with the existing technology. I think one issue is that there aren't always products out there that will really make things better." So that's really interesting.
The latter part is absolutely true, that there may not be a product that makes things better. So part of our expectation setting is to recognize that the product that you want may not have everything. Your mainframe didn't have everything when you first started. Your PeopleSoft, when it first was there, didn't have everything. Your Lucians didn't have everything. I think that's where we are even with the cloud products at this stage. The reality of it is you have to work around it. There's some really good products out there, but you have to work around it and recognize how to enable those products for what it does and then support it as you move forward. So, all right.
I think it's
And I
kind of
think also to Christina's point, where I've seen it is where people feel like that they are being left behind by their competition, and they haven't stopped to look and see, do the tools that I have, can I actually leverage those rather than getting something new? Can I leverage those to actually make me more competitive? And rather than just a reflexive, oh, everybody else has got this new thing, I need to get this new thing, rather than diving in and seeing if you've got what you need.
Yeah. So we are on a timeline, and Gabrielle is doing exactly what I asked that she do, is keep us on track. So I just moved all of us. Yeah, I moved us, all of us, to the next question. And this will lead us into the latter part of our ThinkSpace. These responses are going to inform the work we will do in the latter part of this ThinkSpace. So, wow, you are already starting to put things in. Yep. This is great.
This is awesome. Yep. So what factors hinder projects from meeting expectations? So go ahead and put in the response and put in your responses with the comments and your ideas. When you're done with that, you can go ahead and scroll through. I think some folks kind of forget that there's, you can actually scroll through and look at all the different responses, and you can vote up. So you have 10 votes for each of the categories. So, using the sticky dots to identify who's responsible to address these factors. In response to one of the chats previously, you do not have to belong to one of these groups to actually vote that category in. Okay, so you are free to use the sticky dots however you feel is appropriate. Do not feel hindered based on what your specific role is. We just did that in the beginning just to get a better sense for who's in the room with us. Did I miss anything?
No, it's great.
Okay.
I'm just looking at the response. And the way that we do our ThinkSpaces is we actually run these ThinkSpaces. Michael's been involved with this now, JTH and Gabrielle. We actually do it by ourselves and ask these questions to ourselves so that we understand, are we getting to the right place? And you are walking right into the places that we have seen in our discussion. So the themes that we were seeing were, it's institution-centric focus, right? And there's a lot here in terms of that. A status quo mindset, that we've done it the same way. This is what we do all the time. We are unique mindset. There's also a siloed mindset that we have. So I would love anyone's thoughts that are in the X Sleep feature. What are your thoughts? What are the themes that you're coming? Because I think it's a mindset issue. I think there is a lack of certain things that come into play. And then I believe that everyone wants the easy button. So we'd love anyone in the audience if they have any comments. Or Michael, go ahead.
It's fascinating looking at some of the responses, right? Scope creep, money, not changing business processes, right? That's a fascinating one, the business processes, especially as it relates to these cloud solutions, right? You're upfront agreeing to operate in the manner that's set forth for you. But to pivot back to a higher level about the expectations or the why, right? Starting with why. Why are we truly doing this? Does that start with at the presidential level when expectations slow down? Do we have agreement across the university, right? I'd love to hear Janet. Janet Fleming from UNO said something earlier about communication and executive buy-in about the transformation that they're embarking on. Janet, you have any thoughts or concerns about what faces you and your institution as you transform?
Sure. I feel like we have new leadership, so to speak, that may not be familiar with what's going to be involved. I've been trying to do my best to educate them on how big of a project we're about to undertake and everything that's needed for that.
Shush.
So I think a lot of it is sort of educating up to those
Quiet.
leaders.
Ariana.
Excuse us, we, if someone's on unmute, can you just mute yourself? Thank you.
Yeah.
So this is really interesting. And Janet, really, I appreciate it. You know, there's so many different factors. I believe I think a lot of this is this unrealistic expectation that we expect from our implementation. It is like, oh, if we go and move to a new product line, or if we put in a new system, or enrollment drops, and all of a sudden you're going to buy an analytics platform to actually do your retention. The reality of it is, unless you have strategy, unless you know where you're going, you're going to struggle a lot in actually deploying whatever the tool that you're putting into place. So, no, this has been good, and I need to
Alex.
move. Yeah, go ahead.
This is Charlie. Just an observation. We see a lot of goals for these projects, and I kind of put this in the chat. Too often, you say, well, if that's your goal, then what's your strategy to get there? What's your plan to get there? They go, what? Well, that's we want to achieve efficiencies of the business processes. We want to improve. Okay, what's the metric? How are you going to measure it? But also, what is your strategy to get there? Instead, we have these goals, and then we do the project, and we go, do we get our goals? And you go, well, what did you do to achieve those goals? How did you change the implementation, the staffing? The real problem usually is executive sponsorship to drive that change in the organization. Because if you're just going to come up with goals, the answer is, I've had looked at goals sometimes, and I say, drugs are cheap in your state. You just come up with these hallucinations about what they could be. But you're not really going to step up to what it takes. And that's usually where we see these problems are people not stepping up to what it takes, or not thinking through that, or heaven help you actually being active executive sponsors.
Charlie, thank you so much. And Charlie, I don't know why you're not here in Chicago with us. You're a fellow Chicagoan. We could have added a seat here for you, Charlie.
Nobody invited. Of course, the other hand, I have a day job, remember?
I got a day job. I just kind of morphed my love for higher ed into my day job. That's all you got to do, Charlie.
Charlie's too good for us. He's too good, right?
Oh, God, stop.
So really quick, so folks that don't know Charlie Moran, runs Moran Technology, and he's absolutely right? So we look at implementations as just an activity that we have to put in place for this university.
And the magic's in the software.
And the magic's in the software.
Yep.
And the reality is the magic isn't in the software. The software is just enabling the strategy that you wanted to embark on. And until universities and colleges stop thinking, I have to just cut over because my platform is burning, which they use that as an excuse. The reality of it is you shouldn't get your platform to be burning at that moment. You should be having these discussions before your platform is burning. That's the first discussion. We will, as I said to you, and we're going to go through an exercise about how do we get here. We need to think about how do we design for the future? And some of it is what we goaled ourselves for pre-pandemic is not what you should be goaling for in your current system. If you're just going to copy your legacy system into your implementation of this new product, you're actually still driving on the old road, potholed roads. you know, so it's a little bit of that I really wanted us to talk through. So,
Yep, and we have a few comments in the chat as well. Lindsay Conursa, I'm not sure if I said her last name
From University of
correctly.
Minnesota.
Yep, but they said, what is the heartbeat that is driving the project and really understanding the core of that implementation? And then Arthur Friedrich, sorry if I said your name wrong, said, why can't we rethink the way technology delivered? You know, why can't there be an integration framework in which we can plug in the module that most closely aligns with our needs? And so, you know, really thinking about the purpose behind, you know, actual implementation instead of just chasing the next shiny thing. So these are all awesome. We could stay here forever, I know, but we got to move on.
Yeah, before we move, I just wanted to sort really quick. What are the things that are hindering you? Scope creep, that goes back to a little bit of setting expectation and understanding what you're buying, what you're getting, and then clearly laying out the direction you're going. So that's what project teams should be looking at. Lack of communication and training. These are often the project team side of, hey, this is what they should be thinking about, not changing business processes. If you look at it, those are really critical elements of this, right? Now, if I move to a C-suite element, you'll see that there's politics, other priorities on campus, money, funding, and then changing business processes. So any thoughts from the audience? If not, I mean, a lot of really good feedback.
I like Ray Martin's comment in the chat that said, the first commandment of the 10 commandments of a go live, and this goes to business process, is thou shalt not speak of the old ways.
Sounds good. All right, we're going to move really quickly to our next speed round. As you notice, we're not as fast as I wanted to be. I said 5 minutes, but you know, we'll get there.
It's like an implementation, right?
Yeah. Setting the expectation and not meeting it. What are the signs? I'm hoping you all can see this. What are the signs of a struggling implementation? And this is important because implementations are long. And when you start seeing this, this is what, in the end, your expectations will be impacted by. There you go. Wow. I love it. And there's a lot of things that we talked about that are, I see coming through here. Okay.
And one of the ones that kind of stood out to me on this one and also the last one was this idea of, you know, staff burnout. And I'm kind of wondering if someone would like to talk a little bit more about, you know, what they maybe meant by that when they put that, or maybe what are some factors that are contributing to that.
Yeah,
We had that.
this is Steve Shablin from Michigan State University. We're in the throes of an implementation during a pandemic, and we have done this primarily remote. I'm seeing it in my staff who are assigned to the project, primarily many of my project leads in the student records area. They're working probably 12 to 16 hours a day, weekends. And I'm also feeling it in the staff back in the home office as you change business processes. And it's, in the reality is, I think we see burnout, there is really no end in sight, right? Is we go live, but there's a significant amount of transition in operations and sort of steady state that will have to continue for a number of years. And I don't think necessarily there is a good understanding from the upper administration that that has to happen. It's the sense that you're live, so you must be done. And that's far from truth. And I think part of it is at the beginning, we didn't do a good job of educating executive managers, or at least executive sponsors, whatever what this project will take. What does it mean after implementation? So now the questions are, why do you need resources after you're live to go? So it's just a sense of you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, which I think creates a lot of the burnout from my perspective.
Steve, I really appreciate one, being that candid in an implementation. You know, I have to say thank you for doing that and speaking about it. You know, one of the biggest issues, and like I said, I put in student systems. I'm as guilty as anyone else in putting in implementations that may not have met the expectations. Hence, I started Beyond. But the reality of it is that it's sometimes a license game. You know, it's I need to put a software in, and so I need to back into a budget. I need to back into capabilities. And I think sometimes we don't hear the expectations. We don't, because sometimes we're expecting that product because we're putting, it's millions of dollars, right? Some projects are $30 million. And we're saying we're putting in a $30 million system. It better do everything. And the reality of it is it can't do everything. It's not built that way. So one is we have to make sure, one, we have to figure out how to make implementations much more cheaper, more effectively. That's a discussion we should be having. The other thing is we have to set the expectation on what it really means to get a new system in and what it means for backfill, what it means for change management. Implementations is not a technology thing. It is a change management driven strategy that has to be embedded as we move forward. So
raising the roof to you, Matt, on that one.
what was that?
That I'm raising the roof to you on that last comment. You're dead on. It's more of a culture change because technology changes so fast that the old ways, like you said, into the gentleman's point about the old business processes, you have to really, the culture change for the people more so than the technology.
I agree. And change for continuous improvement is never done. It's continuous in order for it to be effective. And that's where the fatigue, I think, sets in for those who maybe can't see the bigger picture of the change and the need for change and where we're going.
I'll just add a comment here, and I mentioned it on the LinkedIn chat, but I think we have to rethink the way we frame implementations or deployments. And I think we got to move to the adage of adoption. And when you think about adoption of a technology throughout the institution, as that being the end goal, then implementation, go live, is simply a milestone along that journey, right? And maybe someone mentioned earlier about framing this up to executive leadership. But if we're driving change, in the case of Indian River, when we did Workday Student and ECM and Finance, you know, we had a very clear goal of trying to drive student success. And we realized that, of course, now it's got a name of digital transformation. But what we realized was that our students today have different expectations. There's the Amazon type expectations, the social media expectations. And so we were really looking at this idea of transformation in terms of being able to serve students much easier on the form factors that they had, which frankly is smartphones. And I look at technologies today, and if it's not mobile enabled, I don't buy it, right? That's just simply that. But in terms of adoption then really says that after go live, now we're going to be continuing to work with our staff, continuing to work with our people, right? We're really, things that the change management piece is front and center. A lot of times when these projects, and I've done several of them, you know, change management's a piece. But really, if you really want to change behavior, and I talked about it with us, and we've all been through this, the 7 deadly sins of, the 7 stages of grief of trying to get people to give up the old business process. But I think if we had a framework that really was in the format of adopting this new technology and adapting to it, and that includes the student piece as well, because a lot of times we're worried about how do we get the faculty on board? How do we get the executive leadership on board? But really, we want to make sure that in the future, I think that for us, student retention and success is now a business imperative. We all see this cliff that we're headed towards here with enrollment falling off of it, 2024, 25, 26, 27. And so we have really got to really transform our institutions in terms of student services, really using data to drive student success and getting ready, frankly, for artificial intelligence applications that really do have real promise in order to help us get there.
Hey, Paul, you're setting me up for our next activity that we're going to walk right into. So that's awesome because we're going to go right into a lot. I mean, you probably could have done the next activity for us because you just spoke about it in a lot of ways. So really quick, I always like to go back to the, just to sort a little bit. You'll see that poor leadership. There's a lot of emails with no decisions. There's scope creep. There's a lack of ownership. So the things that JTH, Gabrielle, and Mike and I talked about was these are some of the signs that we normally would see. The worn out staff is certainly one of them. Change orders, consultants being replaced, decisions are slow, scope creep, replanning, pause of a project, extending a timeline, you're over budget. And then of course, the famous one that we all know is resistance to change. These are all signs that are coming together. Steve, I see your hand is up, and can I just ask, I will bring you right back into this conversation, Steve, but let me get to the next, because I want us to get to the next one, and you could probably even add color to that too. So, all right. I'm hoping you all are liking this. So how do we get here? And so I'm going to open up how we got here. Let's see if I can't get you all there.
And we have so many amazing comments in the chat too. I wish we could address all of them.
And we want you to be interactive. And Paul, thank you for jumping in. And Steve, I know you're going to. So what we're really looking at here is, I think we have a little bit of background. Hector, can you see a little bit of the background? Thanks. This is a graphic that we produced because we wanted you all to understand that the way we do implementations is still outdated. Paul is absolutely right. We have to aspire to do new things. So let's just go through this, and I want you all to understand it. In the 85s and before, we were doing telephone and manual, stuff in an office. We were gatekeepers in what we did when there was no computer. So you needed people to have lists. You needed people to manage, certain rules and policies. There was an elite mindset during that time. And then in the 85s, after the 85s, we started to, really focus on mainframes and scantrons and phone registrations. I don't know if everyone knows, we used to register on phones with touch tones, right? You wouldn't know this, but it was a moment in time that we all remember that we thought was really modern. But what we did during those times was we took our manual processes, those lists, these rules, these prerequisites, and we computerized them. Why? And I'm going to go in the next slide, you'll see the factors of it. I'm going to speak about that in a second. And then we went to this internet-driven world where personal computers were on our desks. We had a web connectivity that was allowing it. You started to see ERPs come into play. PeopleSoft and Lucian and all these were great products that was really transforming how we operated. We were automating all these back office processes. But in the end, we're still doing that same manual process in a much more digital way. We then moved into this mobile world. In 2007, when the iPhone came, we saw tablets and laptops become a big player. We started to self-promote ourselves. And then, of course, we had this whole cloud. Let's get to the cloud, mantra. That's great. We were shifting our responsibility from infrastructure and putting it elsewhere. We were doing everything from anywhere else. We were giving people some autonomy to do things. You started to see that, but we still were doing the manual stuff. And now we've done it anywhere, anytime in remote infrastructure, but we're still doing the same processes. I was a former registrar in the 90s, long time ago. I walk into campuses that I consult today and we're still doing the same thing. And yet the technology that we have is so advanced as we move forward. So, and then of course, we're now in what I call the automated driven ecosystem. And this is what Paul just talked about. AI driven, blockchain is starting to have, we're having discussions about blockchain. While people are putting in implementations of how to run a transcript, we're not thinking about that in all these campuses because that's table stakes. I think Fong is on here. We're talking blockchain. We're having this online engagement, not Zoom engagement like we're having right now. And so you'll start to see this. You'll start seeing a flipped campus. And we're going to be talking about how to flip a campus in the next couple sessions and so forth. But I want us to think through this a little bit. And if you look at the second slide, and these are out there, I'm going to leave this open for you so you all can have it. The factor one is when we first started implementing in the 90s, processes were ahead of technology, meaning we barely could do Excel capabilities. And that's what we needed it to do. So we were doing it because it was only able to do Excel capabilities. But we're still tracking wait lists like an Excel spreadsheet. Let's start rethinking that in a lot of ways. And we talk about Amazon, we talk about Uber, all those are coming into play. Today, processes are behind the technology. And we can see that in campuses all over the world, is that the way that we operate in Amazon, the way that we operate in a movie theater, the way that we operate using our music, totally different. We do a whole exercise of that. The other thing here, and I want factor three to really embed here a little bit. We are laden with gatekeepers of rules of a campus. I'm the custodian of the records. I'm the financial aid director. And yet we don't have custodians. That's factor four. We don't have custodians of sustainability. The reality of it is we all need to be there as we move forward. So I'm going to let Steve, it's all yours. And I'm going to move us to the next one while you're talking.
Well, I was sort of going with the previous slides that you had up there, just around what I see as common areas of failure. Whenever you take on any initiative, you need to answer two questions. One question is, should we do it? But the other question is, could we do it? And the could we gets around the risk factors. Does it have the right executive sponsor? Do we have enough resources? Do we have enough funding? It's all of the risk factors. Because if you don't mitigate those risks and you start a project, so you need to answer not should we, but you need to answer could we. So when we talk about things like organizational readiness, the consultants come in, and for them, they bring organizational readiness as the activities you do to make sure you're ready to flip the switch and go live. Are we organizationally ready to take on the new capabilities? The reality is organizational readiness begins before the consultants ever show up. Are we organizationally ready for the consultants? Common mistake. They bring on the consultants, they're not ready, which means they're already behind from the get-go, which is cost money, right? Cost overruns. So these are just things I wanted to share. You need to look at things. Are we ready? Because I've had times have had to say, you know what, we can't do this right now. We need to push it off. Make sure you have the right people in the right roles. Resourcing is everything for success. It's not realistic often in higher ed. They have people trying to perform heroic actions in order to deliver a project. What it does is actually fail the project.
You're absolutely right, Steve. You had something to say, Michael?
What Steve just said reminded me of something that an old colleague by the name of Joseph Clay once said, right? And he said, CAPE money, right? How much of our CAPE money are we going to spend on any given initiative? And by CAPE, right, Steve, he was talking about these superhuman, heroic actions that a small group of individuals need to take that lead to burnout and other things, right? So very fascinating, Steve.
No, and I think what Steve is alluding to, and I think what Paul was alluding to is it kind of meshes, and I'm going to try to bring it together. Steve is saying you have to prepare ahead of time. You have to, and also address, do you have the capabilities within a campus? That's a really important piece. Everyone is just jumping because it's an easy button. It's, I can do this. This is what we need to do. But we really need to start to stop and say, can we do this? So part of this is we need leaders to lead us in that discussion way ahead of time. And then Paul spoke about culture and getting everyone to recognize what the future is. Because I can have a team that's ready, Steve, but if they're not seeing what's in front of them and what should be in front of them, we're going to have struggles as we move forward. So I see that you all have started to get in the ThinkSpace around this. What era are you in? So we have these different eras, right? And so within your system, where are you in these era? Where are you with your activities, your practices? Where are you with your focuses? And if you notice on the top left corner, you'll see a little PDF. Go ahead and click it because it'll bring you the graphics so you can revisit that if you need to. So go ahead, I'm going to give you a little bit of time. We're going to move quickly through this. Gabriel's already nudged me a couple times. So
She's giving up. She's giving up.
she's given up. Are you ready for the spin?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah. I think this is really interesting because I think some folks in one of our previous section had talked about how, it's kind of this implementations are kind of this ongoing, process, and it takes a lot of time and all of that. But then what ends up happening is by the time that implementation is in place, the ship has kind of sailed. Now there's somewhere else that we need to be. So it's kind of this continuous process. It never feels like there's an end in sight. So really the question is, how do we put ourselves in front of that ship so that we're ready for it when it arrives, right?
I see someone put in patchwork of eras. Yeah, that's true.
I do think, though, that's the idea of shifting from deployment, which essentially, like it or not, is an IT-led thing. It's not, at least it's viewed as an IT thing on campus. If I start to frame this as an adoption, and now I make it an institutional thing, and now I start to address the silos that we all know need to come down for an initiative like this really to transform an organization. And I'm often taken aback by how one perfectly placed person doesn't have to say too much in a key area can really stop all progress moving forward. And it's just by this holding on to the past. And so, but I think in terms of adoption, now go live is a milestone. How much more work is to do? And I agree that there's money involved in this, right? But our CFO said to me once when we turned on Workday Student Go Live, he says, Paul, he says, really, the perfect time to implement Workday would have been 2 years after we implemented Workday. Meaning that now we would have had that institutional knowledge about the product, how it really works, how working in a cloud environment. And now, and I started to think about that and started to think in terms of that would be an ideal time to have a continued relationship with a team coming in now to really drive that adoption piece, right? Given the institutional knowledge that you now have.
You're absolutely right. I think a lot of times we focus on the implementation and not what should be done before the implementation. The reason implementations are expensive is because when you're starting to make decisions with an implementation and a consulting group and your resources at the same time, where you're thinking strategy, you're expending consulting, you're expending your resources on things that should be hashed out before you actually start to think about what are we configuring for? What are the things that we should be there? So I think in moving forward, implementations have to do, before an implementation, you have to start to focus on the priorities, where you need to go, what are those? How do you put the right team in, as Steve said? And then by the time you come into an implementation to make it really affordable and effective, you've already have the architecture, you have the design, you know what that software can do, because it should meet it. If they can't meet it, what are the gaps to that? Right now, you do an 18 to 20 month window on an implementation, and you're guessing sometimes on is that capability good, because you're on a safe harbor roadmap. Is a capability of a software going to be there for you? And the reality of it is you can't afford to do that moving forward. So that's something we're going to really have to talk through. Before we talk about the era, I see that Gabrielle just started sharing. We're giving out 2 or 3, what is it, 2? Did we say 2?
Everyone.
2 Amazon $25 gift cards for people who registered on the Hug site.
Mhm.
So go ahead, Gabriel, it's all yours.
All right, let's see who won. This is my favorite part of the whole thing, is giving away gift cards. All right, Rob Sparks. Is Rob Sparks in here?
Rob texted me, he was in a demo, and so that's great. Rob will appreciate that. Okay,
Okay. Should we do the next one now?
let's do the next one.
Okay. I'm gonna shuffle a few more times.
So Rob Starks is from Anthology. So just an FYI for folks who don't know Rob.
Okay, awesome.
Will.
And is that Eli?
Eli Lopez. Is Eli in the house?
I'm here.
Hey, look at that. Look at that. So I presume we have your email. Hope you didn't give us a wrong email, but the Hug group will give us the email.
No, it should be real. Thanks.
Okay. Well, congrats. Congrats to you. Enjoy your Amazon gift card. You know what? Let's just do one more.
We'll do one more. Okay.
Since I think we did 3 last time.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Vicky said yes.
All right. Shuffle a few times and let's spin.
While this is spinning, I want to say thanks for everyone. We got 122 people having this discussion. Somaya, you were here early. Are you still here, Somaya?
I am here.
Look at you, Somaya, coming in early and winning an award late. Congrats to you. Where are you from, Somaya?
Well, I am in Baltimore County, so I work. I am the World Languages Coordinator at the Community College of Baltimore County, but I also work with the University of Maryland, Towson University, and Goucher College.
Well, welcome. We really appreciate it. As you know, we are partnered with the League for Innovation in the community colleges.
Yes,
and
exactly.
My firm is a big believer that community colleges play a huge part in the success of the market going forward. And we're seeing that in many different places. So one, Somaya, thanks for joining us, being a part of this discussion. I think even implementations have to be really powerful for our community colleges as they change and transform, how we operate in higher ed. So thank you so much.
Absolutely, and we're doing a lot of that, and this is a learning experience for me, and I'm very happy to be here and learning from you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you all for being here.
All right, so I'm going to move you all back to the XLEAP area, and I'm just going to look at this and say, hey, a lot of you are right in the middle. You're cloud inspired, your systems are cloud inspired, your mobile devices are activities are driven by the mobile, internet is driven by the mobile, activities are driven by that. So you'll see that we have all these different areas. So that's really good. Cobbled together part 1 and 6. Yeah. So I think the patchwork is something that we're really talking through. All right. So I'm hoping you all are liking this. We're in our home stretch. We've got 30 minutes to really tackle a lot of content here. Now we're going to get to what we're talking about is how do we gain value from implementations, right? So I'm going to move us to overcoming the factors. So we talked about the factors that we have. We have these, so I have these 3 factors, and I'd love for us to maybe think about if I love my legacy, because some, you can't see it? All right, let's see. Can you see that now?
Yeah.
All right. You'll see that we have these mindsets that we're really having to overcome, right? I love my legacy processes. So I'm going to ask the question, how do we overcome that legacy mindset that we have? Remember what I just said to you, that we are implementing 1990 processes in a digital form. So everyone is a creature of habit. Give us a little bit of how do we address it? So hit the plus button, listen to people. There you go. I'm gonna throw a couple more stickies on really quick so you can see that.
Michael, is there any of these that stick out to you just at first glance?
You know, I stop fearing change, right? We're getting to the core elements of what it means to be human, right? That one's always fascinating. But what do we do? How do we do that, right? It starts with why, right? Helping people to bridge to the future, understanding their own limitations, their own fears, right? I think that's a very fascinating one, the letting go. I talked to a friend over the weekend who works in the registrar's office at University of Pittsburgh, and one of the things that he brought up and he continues to bring up is the resistance to change, right? But do we ever ask why? Do we ever get into that? Not that implementations or group therapy, we may need therapy after the implementation, but some form of that is probably needed on the front end, right?
So it's an interesting thing that I'm seeing here. So there's some of this is while we talk about love of legacy, there's some folks that are still putting the issues that we have, like stop, fear changing, right? Like fear of changing. My question is, and let's think through this, is what are the things that we can do here? So I'm going to ask a couple things. You have vote ups, you have 10 vote ups. I want you to look at solutions, not issues, because we've already talked about issues in a lot of ways. I want you to look at what your colleagues have said that are potential, like, yeah, we should do this. Use your vote up. You have 10 of them. Go ahead and pick 10.
Yep, so a vote up is basically saying, yes, I agree with that.
Do we owe it to ourselves to have more honest conversations about the reality of implementations? I think back to Stephen and what he said at Michigan State. They aren't the first, they aren't going to be the last, right? Who goes on
Implementations are not going away.
Right, exactly.
And part of this exercise that I want to recognize is no one is saying don't do the implementation.
Right.
We're saying let's start doing the implementations the right way.
Yeah, but
that may start with what Paul said. It may start with what Steve said.
Right.
What I'm getting at is we don't always call that implementations, but technically everyone thinks it's an implementation because you have a software vendor that's turning on something.
Yeah.
That's when the implementation starts. Really, implementation starts months, years before that.
Absolutely.
So
those are the other conversations.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I think, yeah.
Oh, sorry. So this is Tina, and I had put in there the whole invest in team building and change management. And basically, because, and I think there's so many people with great and long experience in this, is when we first started implementing ERP systems, change management was not even ever mentioned. It was just get it in, make sure it meets the business need, just shove it in. And then it was, we evolved to some of the projects implementing. And I still, even to this day, I find that even though everybody knows about change management because it handles the soft issues, not really the hardcore qualitative or quantitative things, that it still has a tendency to be discounted because it's a separate project that it should be sort of running in parallel with your implementation. And there is a real cost to it. And I think we still have a tendency to think, oh, these are soft issues and don't really count. But our experience tells us that it's all of those soft issues. It's all of that team building. It's all how well our teams work together and communicate. And that handoff, is that handoff seamless? Is it take loads and loads of meetings to make decisions? Or is it that people really can communicate well? That tells us that, I mean, that's what really leads to like the sense of accomplishment at the end, the sense of, yes, we can, the lack of burnout, all of those things that make it a better, more positive experience that leads to a better outcome. And yet we still have a tendency to not put the investment in there on because, and I don't know, and you know, I don't know if that's because a lot of these things are being driven by the IT side and they don't see the soft issues as it just hasn't really been given, I think, the platform and the importance that we really know from the implementation experience that it needs.
So Tina, you make a great point. So I think this goes back to how do we get here? We got here with this era of just adoption. So we've been adopting just the same way. When technology wasn't as advanced, you just went and did it because processes were much more advanced. Today, the business process that our students are going to come in and expect has to be rethought at a campus. We can't copy how we manage an admissions office. We can't copy how we manage a student financial office the way that we did from the past. We have to reimagine that as we go forward. So, and I just sorted really quick around on this question around loving my legacy. We talk about investing, team building, and change management. You can't do that inside of an implementation. If you do it, you're wasting dollars of your institution. That has to be done before an implementation. And it has to be done with people who understand what campuses of the future look like. If the big struggle that I have with a lot of implementation and people that put it in, you have a lot of consultants who are just configurers of the product. You need people who are going to change the way you operate. And that's what you're going to need to code. And the reality of it is the people within the campus know how to change it, but they are not empowered a lot of times. So that goes to number 2, listen to people and keep it simple. I work with a few really innovative clients right now. That mantra is something we talk about. Every time we look at an optimization, we say, why do we have all these issues? And then we say, let's make this simple. What's the easiest policy? What's the easiest process? And then we're not even changing systems at that point. We're now rethinking how you serve simply. Students don't want 5 layers of a gatekeeper's analysis. So no, this has been great. Anybody in the audience other than Tina? I know Tina, that was great. Anybody else?
Matt, I wanted to add something if I can. So when you're talking, the question being, how do we overcome mindsets that hinder change? We need to take people from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. It means changing the vernacular as well. You got to go from saying things like, we have never done this before, to changing it to, we need to build new skills and let's identify what they are. Or change it from, the staff will never go for it, to language like, we need to show how this will be great for the staff. Or, to change it from, we made a mistake, to, we made a mistake and here's what we learned from it. The vernacular needs to change from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. And when you start a journey about, again, how do you overcome mindsets that hinder change? Let's start with process. Forget about the technology.
Yeah.
Start with process.
Well, I've just had one thing there, and I agree with you, Steve, on your comment, but I think a lot of times schools don't have a shared vision. I mean, if we're really at a point whereby, does executive leadership understand this? That's not a shared vision. Equally, if I go down to the financial aid office and they don't really understand what we're doing, or the faculty don't understand what, you do not have a shared vision. And so one of the things I think with these implementations is we've got to really start off with that vision of what we're trying to achieve, where we're trying to go, and why. Let's think about that. I love my legacy. So does your legacy give you the data to help inform your decision-making day to day in the role you play in the organization? Or are we still back in the old ETL processes whereby I'm going to offload this to some data warehouse, I'll put that in quotes. You're going to make a request to somebody to get that data. And guess when you'll get it? You'll get it maybe 3-4 weeks, if you're lucky, after it was any use to you at all. And because our model today is that these systems of the past only serve the executive leadership. Yes, as a vice president, I can walk in and say, I need that, and I need it by 3 o'clock. I might get it, right? If you're a staff member who actually, if you think about it, are on the front lines making these decisions with students, their chances of getting that, making that same request are 0. So we have got to really take a look at these systems as being transformative in terms of truly trying to drive data. But in order to do that, I have to have a shared vision that the institution's buying into. Then when I come back after the go live and I tell the president, we're going to need another $2 million for this change management adoption piece. I'm going to get it. Why? Because we've clearly articulated where we're trying to get to, right?
So
And
Paul,
now,
Paul, I think that the issue with the issue with shared vision at most campuses is, if you ask the project team members, if you remember when I said, you know, who's responsible for some of this, some of them are gatekeepers. Some of them are not looking
Yes.
at a shared vision of, I got to make this experience better for a campus. I got to make this better for my students. So part of this exercise that we're going to have to do, and Paul, I totally agree with you, and I appreciate you jumping in on this. I do agree that you need to have a shared vision, and that's going to be an important piece as you move forward. But I don't think that everyone is responsible. They're not. We should be asking, you know, people, even in IT, hey, if we're asking for a change, if you're throwing roadblocks, that means they're not in there to help the business user have that shared vision. So we need to get a shared vision that's across the board, get everyone on the why. And I'm doing this all the time. It is about the why, really quick. I see Niraj is up, and I see Cynthia's up. I'm gonna go, I think it's Niraj first. And then while Niraj is doing it, you'll see that I moved you all to overcoming mindset of we are unique. And I'd love for you to start filling that out while Niraj is gonna drop the mic in a second. All yours, Niraj.
Thank you. So I think change is all about people. And I think as a normal people who are spending hours, 10 hours, 12 hours for implementation, doing more than what their normal job required them to do, what's their incentive? Are you giving the people who are working on an implementation project extra bonus, extra money, part of the project? You give money to your consultants, they charge money, but those people who are working extras get no money. How you motivate them, how you bring those people on fold so they are in the change? It's like what I'm getting money. Am I getting knowledge? Am I getting skilled before even the project start? And after the implementation, what recognition I get? Do I get a promotion if I do a good job, or just get a lunch and say, okay, thank you? So if you create that culture that, hey, we invest in people, we will help you, support you, move you forward, and this is going to help you individually grow and maybe either make money, it motivates you and be part of that team. That's it.
All right, thank you, Niraj. So you're saying let's incentivize, you know, people by creating a culture that gives them a little bit of ownership, gives them a little bit of, because I saw some of what's in it for me, right? So what's in it for me a lot of times is I got to do my day job. So, and I've had clients that have said to me, we're trying to put in a modern technology, and they're like, well, this isn't really transforming my part of this piece, so I don't want to do it. The reality of it is it's hindering other parts as you move forward. So I appreciate it. Hey, Cynthia, welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My background was in the museum world until I recently transitioned into the academic world, where I'm now doing IT, and now I'm on a project team. But I could tell you, I feel that with a lot of this talk that I get from upper management regarding the implementation of projects, and I see the enthusiasm for it in the upper management, and I brought it up to management that it doesn't always necessarily trickle down to the end users. The end users are sometimes just, hey, guess what? On X day, you're gonna get your systems are upgraded and it's gonna look different. And a lot of the times it's like, what? Why? They don't understand the why, because that knowledge doesn't make it all the way down. The best way I can relate it to people, because it's a different mindset from the technology world to the museum world, and it's not enough that you have an exciting exhibit. Let's say you're getting dinosaur bones. It's not enough that that's exciting. You have to be able to put yourself in the place of your museum visitor from the moment they step out of their home. You have to be able to plan all of that, so for your exhibit to be great. And not only is just the exhibit, you also have maintain additional programming for that. What kind of outreach are you going to be having? All of that is planned. And here in the tech world, I feel that it's a lot of just whatever trickles down, whatever gets trickled down, the programmers, engineers, I see it, and it's a lot of silo effects. Sometimes the HR field is not talking to the tech side, and the people that enforce security. No one is really, they're all in the same calls, but they're not really talking to each other about the nitty gritty stuff because of those silo effects. And I can see it because I'm kind of new to my university. And I've gone up the chain. I'm like, I just got into this new position and I'm still months later, I'm still trying to get the security to do all of my job responsibilities. I can't get a clear answer as to what is the holdup.
Absolutely. So we see this in security because they have cyber and everything else, right? And I had people basically halt us to do even like implementing something really fast to help recruit students better. And then when they recognize, I said, hey, look, I'm just going to go tell the president that if you can't do it because of that, then what she's trying to do to do that for this high school, that allowed her to recognize that it wasn't about security anymore. Now, did we still enable the security to protect the institution? Of course we did. But we had to rethink what they'd done for a long time, and then we enabled it. And now that institution is doing really well around that, and that's just an example of it. So, well, welcome to higher ed. We want you to be at more ThinkSpaces, come to Alliance, come to the League for Innovation sessions that are out there. So we're really excited about that. So, yeah. All right, we're gonna move really quick. I'm going to do unrealistic expectations really quick. I'm going to move you all there. And in post mingle, and for the folks that are not familiar with us, we do post mingle after the bottom of the hour. We go about 30 minutes where we just unplug the recording and we just go back and reflect on the discussion. So I would love for you all to do this exercise really quick. The unrealistic expectations. How do we overcome unrealistic expectations set forth by many factors? What are those things? I'm going to do that in. I'm going to do that in. I love it. And do the vote ups because the vote ups are really important, but also address, how do we address it? Who addresses it? Which one? Yeah. And who takes ownership of this? Really good responses. Be transparent, be open and flexible. This listen came up again. No task is impossible for a person who doesn't have to do the task. I think number 77 is really important, is understanding the why. And then the other thing that I always say, to my clients is that you can't expect softwares to do everything. Universities are really complicated. And then if I were to just go a little bit more into granular on student, HR and finance are very similar, even in other industries, very similar in the way that you run ledgers and the way you run HR. You may have some contracting elements in faculty and stuff in higher ed, but for the most part, it looks the same. It feels the same. You should be able to do it an HR and a finance upgrade with a lot more ease. Student is laden with policies, procedures, mandates from government, financial aid regulations, right? Student is the size of HR and finance put together, and it's double the complications of that. I don't think people realize it. So when people say, I'm going to go embark on a student implementation, well, you better be ready for this complexity, this discussions. You better be ready for the investment you're going to have to put in, because you came from an era where you just copied it over. That isn't the era moving forward. We have schools in here. I know there's some schools in here that are system schools that are going to have to rethink what they do. If you just copy what today's office does in your new system, you should stay in your old system. You have to do what Paul and others are saying. You have to think about what does the future of your campus look like and set that expectation up. Do not set the expectation of and maybe Charlie can chime in on this because he does a lot of vendor selections. If you're just doing requirements, does what I do today do it in this software? Do I have a blocker that's causing this? Those blocker lists should be the first thing you should say, I want to do change management on. And that doesn't happen. And consulting groups don't care. I'm being honest, because they're getting paid by consulting dollars for consulting hours. I love my consulting groups. I was one of them. We have to change that. We have to change it in a much different way where we're now saying to schools, look, if you're not willing to change, stay in your software. If you're willing to change, let's embark on this new cloud product. Let's embark on this new analytics technology. Let's embark on these other things. So I just wanted to, you saw that I jumped on my soapbox there. I just had to talk about it because this unrealistic expectation that it's an easy button is a thing that I want us to make sure we tackle at some point. So, all right. I see a lot of people are put some really good stuff. I'm going to sort really quick up on the vote up. So if all three of them, it's invest, listen, keep it simple, put people where their passions are, really good. All right, so there's a couple things. We're about 9 minutes and we're coming to our conclusion. I'm going to do a couple things here. In our post mingle, we're going to go through an exercise for the people that want to stay. And I'm going to show it to you to incentivize you to stay a little bit. And then we'll go to this process of bringing this airplane down. I'm going to show you. Where are we? Oops. All right. This is what I'm gonna work on with folks that can stay inside of our ThinkSpace for the post mingle, which won't be recorded, but I will keep this up and running. So for folks that have to leave, you can see what your peers have put in there. You know, there's this easy button approach that we apply a lot of things to. There's this technology-driven strategy that, you know what, technology is the strategy. We're going to put in a software. We're going to follow what that software does. And that's our strategy, right? There's a lot of issues in that strategy. The other one is let's recreate legacy. Why? My platform is burning. Like, we're going to have that. So you invest in configuration. You bring consultants who know that software, who's certified, but they're not empowered to make you change what you do. We're going to have that discussion in there. And then there's this followers mentality. I think this was, or somebody put this in. So we're all, if you think about it, we're all saying the same thing. Stop following, start leading, stop doing what everyone else does. Just because someone else has, you know, a new toy doesn't mean that works for you, right? And then there's a lot of vendor-driven strategies. You know what? Hey, the vendor is doing it. Let's go follow what they do. You know, I'm a believer in the vendors. I think we need a strong vendor ecosystem, because those technologies have to be built. Ed tech is going to be really important as we move forward. But if the vendors are still focusing on their products, on just their focus and not the strategy of the universities and colleges, we're going to struggle. If you notice, some vendors will say, oh, financial aid is it? And they'll focus on financial aid. But the reality is it only financial aid, or do you need more than financial aid? It's a common discussion. The Power of One discussion has been had. The reality of it is we're going to have multiple VACs. You're going to need to work with multiple vendors. You need to integrate. So if your vendors can't integrate with other people, just the way we integrate with our iPhones, we're going to have that discussion. I want us to talk through that a little bit. So I'm going to stop there. We're going to get some voting going really quick, and then we're going to put this ladder in. Any last thoughts as I move ourselves into the flight path to close this out.
I have to run, Matt, but I do want to give you one thought. And because when I hear the conversation, I want to say that in the business world, the idea of digital transformation is considered mission critical. And simply not doing it will result in the likelihood of your corporation or company not being around over the next 5-10 years. In higher ed, digital transformation, I define that as maybe the intersection between cloud computing, big data analytics, AI. And so for our world, we seem to still believe that this is optional. And somehow I think we've got to really encourage organizations to realize that if we're not playing in this game of big data and AI in the future, a lot of our institutions may potentially be in jeopardy, right? We're going to see lower enrollment numbers. We're going to see lots of things happening. And I had a list recently that was handed to me, and it's schools that have gone under or merged since 2018. And there's over 400 colleges on it. And I'm just saying to you that somehow, and I think that's where I go back to the shared vision, is this concept of we've got to be able to show people where we're going and the why. And I 100% agree with you, Matt. If we can, if I'm going somewhere and I can tell you why we're doing it, I'm going to find employees in any area of my institution are going to want to come on that journey if they get it. But if I can't explain the why, I'm not the right person that should be serving as an executive sponsor for the project, right? I'll just leave you with that thought.
I think leaders aren't, it isn't by title. And I did a little post on LinkedIn. If you're a leader by title, you're not doing any service to your institution. Like, titles are inflated. I make up titles all the time. It's inflated. What we have to do is you have to have followers. You have to have people who believe in what you're doing. And you as a leader have to know the why of your institution. And that implementation, when you walk in, that why better be driven by you in that way. So I want to say thank you to Michael and Gabrielle for hosting this with me. Before I forget, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I want to say Hector, who's out there with the Be Next Global Group, producing this. We will have a video that comes out of this. And of course, the HOG and the League for Innovation. I want to get that out. So as you all know, we're really focused with the HOG and the Alliance. And so we're going to do a bunch of ThinkSpaces. Just what we're doing here, we're going to do some live sessions at HOG. So these are the topics that we have thought about. And if you have other ideas, please, just message us and talk to us, because we're going to have 10 sessions at Alliance live in person using this technology. We're going to have brainstorming sessions. So go ahead and do us a big favor if you can. Go ahead and vote what you think. I'm going to also do something really quick. I'm going to make this optional, meaning if you want to abstain from it, I'm not going to hold you to it, but you can. Let me just see if I can do that, because I just want as many people to vote as possible. All right. So I'll give you just a minute if you can fill out if these topics would be of interest. Joining us live. We want to curate it as best as possible.
Matt, while folks are doing that, there's some really great conversations going on in chat.
Go ahead and
What do you, just a thought here, what do you think about downloading that and maybe sharing it with some of the folks that were attending, right? There's some jewels in there.
We can certainly do it. I know JTH usually mans the chat. I didn't hear a lot from JTH, but
there was so much going on in chat and so much going on in the conversation that it was kind of hard to break in. But yeah, Mike, there were some great comments, both on terms of change management, leadership, technology. I think downloading this would be really great.
And there's also a message in chat to me directly. Can we get a list of Alliance presentations that you guys are doing? So this list, this voting process is going to inform those discussions.
So we don't have, like, as you all noticed, you know, our Beyond team is not built from a pre-pandemic world. We are built in a much different way. So we're collaborating with the Hub to bring how we approach our consulting, how we approach our dialogue with different people. Hold on, you want me to, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks, I did that by accident. We're working with a Hub to bring some of the topics that need to be had where we can dive deeper. We don't want to be presenting to you. We want us, like I said, I look at my colleagues in the audience. They have way more experience than I do. I mean, Paul walked in and was giving us gems. I think what we want is everyone's voice matters. Hashtag your voice matters is an important piece. So one, I love the fact that you're asking where we're going to be. We're going to be in a space in the exhibit hall called ThinkSpace. Come see us in there, because we will have 10 topics for Monday and Tuesday that will be like this. We will have a little bit of collaborative space, and I'll let the Alliance folks speak to that a little bit more. So
I think Terry has posted some links for Hug in there and for the Alliance conference in chat. Okay,
great. All right,
Yeah,
we're at the
sure did, Matt, and we're really looking forward to working with you and having you there, your whole team there. So yeah, I'd encourage folks to go out to the Alliance conference website that I put in chat if you're interested, and the Hug website is out there as well. So.
Well, you know, part of what we want to do is give you the opportunity to work with us collectively, and then drive a discussion as you move forward. So are you having?
No, I'm just wondering why the voting was stopped. Is it stopped on purpose?
Did it not work?
Some people didn't have a chance to vote.
All right, let me do another thing really. Let me see if I can. I apologize.
Leave open maybe. Okay, if you haven't had a
Hold on,
chance
let me
to
see if I
vote-
can't. It's probably, I know, here. I closed it by accident. I apologize.
Okay, yeah, it probably took a while.
All right, here, I'm gonna, there you go.
Yeah, if you just want to vote on like.
There you go. It should be open now.
Okay.
Is it open now for you all? Sorry.
Yeah, because I think this takes a little while. If you see a few that you really want to vote up and you just want to abstain from everything else, that's okay too. But we do really want to know what your top interests are. It's really, really important. So.
Yeah, mine is still dark, so I'm not sure everybody can get back in yet.
Okay,
Yeah,
hold on a second.
you need to release it. It's still frozen.
What was that, Steve?
Yeah, it's frozen. I think you need to release it.
Okay. All right, so maybe we'll have to figure out something else. I was hoping that we could get this done, but these are topics. It didn't work. Let me just do this. I'm gonna reset this really quick, since everyone seems like they want to add into it. So I'm gonna reset it. I apologize if we're asking people to do it over. My apologies. All right, ready?
I jumped in and did it too quickly, and I thought, oh, they want a 1, a 2, and a 3, and that's it, and submit it. And then I saw, oh my gosh, okay,
Yeah,
I should have
there
been.
we go.
I should have been rating all of them.
It works now. Can you see it now?
Yeah, we can see it.
Very good.
So go ahead. So while we're voting, I want to just make sure that we talk about our next session, which is January 19th, the Great Resignation. So creating a irresistible workplace is going to be the discussion that we're going to have. So we're going to talk about culture and what it means to work at a campus, you know, post-pandemic. We're going to see flipped campuses. We're going to see priorities change. We are going to be hosted live by Miami-Dade College in Miami at their Business and Innovation and Technology Center. Amazing. The difference there is we're going to have an ambassador, we're going to have Gabriel and I, and we're going to have a live audience in 2 settings, one in front of us and then one at another campus. So we're stepping it up every time we go into our next ThinkSpace. We eventually will come back into to Alliance, and we'll have Kumbaya in our ThinkSpace inside of the exhibit hall.
In
So
person. Woo!
in person,
With everyone.
but we will be as dynamic with the technology that we want there. So, all right, is everyone progressing through this pretty well right now? Anyone having an issue?
All right, I think we can stop the recording now and open it up.
Well, I want to say thank you for the hug and the League for Innovation in the community colleges. We're grateful for the collaboration. We're grateful for all of the folks that stayed this long. Thank you so much. We will see you at our next ThinkSpace in January 19th.